just love your Revolutionary War shawl. It's so pretty.
It was very pretty back in the day too.
So what was it like during the Revolution?
It was definitely hard. I mean, your grandfather, my husband, wasn't around very often because he was off in the war fighting.
I heard about those battles in my school. Like, they talked about how America was not destined to win because we didn't have a true army and how the conditions were bad. Did Grandpa lose a limb?
He did his leg.
That makes sense because they didn't have a lot of medicine for the soldiers and most of them lived in camps.
Yeah, it was tough when he came back. Try taking care of him regularly and then think about how he has one leg.
I know. That must have been hard. But that was a lot of men. Like the British soldiers, and they had hundreds compared to the American army. And we weren't prepared. We had mostly farmers and they'd use like whatever they had. We didn't even have a lot of weapons.
Yeah, times were tough.
Yeah.
And me loving my tea, it was taxed, so I couldn't cook, couldn't do anything.
And the Tea Party, you were in Boston during the Tea Party.
Yeah.
And they poured the tea in the harbor.
Yeah.
There must have been a riot then.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there, a lot of shoving, pushing.
Yeah. And then there was like the Boston Massacre where nobody knows exactly who started it. It just was a rift between London and America when the soldiers were there.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine trying to live a life and you don't even know one day when you're going to get shot just cause.
Yeah, it was hard walking down the street. You just didn't know.
And all those acts that they had for you, I mean, you couldn't even buy sugar without it being taxed. And like if you had a stamp or any groceries, those were taxed too, to ridiculous prices.
I couldn't make my cookies.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. It must have been so difficult.
I'm glad I live now instead of
Yeah.
back then still.
So when you got your independence, what was that like? When they finally signed the Constitution and the war was over, did you feel like any different, or were you just glad that Grandpa was home?
I was glad that Grandpa was home, but I was also felt like I could be free again.
Yeah. It must have been nice to get away from England, but couldn't imagine trying to build a full country that we have now. I mean, now we're going through and we have crops, plantations. Back then, we were just nothing.
We were the small fish in a big pond.
That's so cool. Did you ever meet George Washington?
I did not, but I wish I had.
He must have been a great man.
Yeah, I bet he was. He led the country into some great battles.
Yeah, he did. He made a lot of good decisions too, and he played it smart. And I like how he took on his leadership and then became president.
Yeah, your grandfather met him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Was that after when he was in Bunker Hill?
Yep.
I remember him telling stories about Bunker Hill and how he didn't think that he was gonna survive it, and how he basically worked with one musket, and then he went on dug through the ground to find everyone else's musket that was dead and used theirs. That must have been really weird for him and scary to see all those dead people.
He still has emotional problems.